What is the role of religion in our ever-changing world? From the News Channel 5 Network, this is Issues of Faith.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I am Ben Hall. Great topic today. We're talking about the hidden books of the Bible. And we are happy to have with us a biblical scholar and someone who was just recognized at Vanderbilt University at the graduate school as the distinguished alumnus of 2015, James Crenshaw. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
So you're recognized for your passion for biblical studies as well as teaching. And you're about to teach in the month of October, a class for adults, about this topic, the hidden books of the Bible. So what are the hidden books of the Bible? Who hid books?
In the first place, there are two groups of hidden books from the biblical period. And one of them, they were not actually hidden. And those are the Apocrypha, the 14 books that are in the Roman Catholic and the Eastern Orthodox Bible, but not in the current Protestant Bible. The other books are they're the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they were actually hidden. Whereas the first group, the Apocrypha, the word hidden is really a fiction. And they used the term because they thought these additional books were more inspirational and that they should be reserved for scholars. They were too deep to be read by just anyone. So
they were taken out. And at what time were they taken out?
They were actually put into the Hebrew Bible in about 250, before the Common Era.
250?
About 250.
So that's a long time ago. Okay.
A long time ago. Actually, around 580, somewhere about that time, Jews began to move to Egypt. And by 250, there was a huge group of Jews in Alexandria, which was the cultural center of the ancient world. Had the best library anywhere, the best philosophers and scholars, mathematicians. So the Jewish community had begun to speak Greek. They could not speak Hebrew or Aramaic any longer and couldn't read the Bible. So they commissioned someone to translate the Hebrew Bible into Greek. And when they translated it, they also decided that there were so many popular books, they ought to be scripture as well. So they included those popular books. And there were 14 of them that eventually became the Bible of the Christians. But they were not accepted by mainstream Judaism.
And I'm fascinated by the process of what gets in the Bible and what doesn't.
Yes.
And so that is how those things got in and the date that those things got in. And then there was another major edit on the Protestant side, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
As late as the 1800s.
Well, what happened was that in the time that Jerome, about 410, translated the scriptures, Hebrew, into Latin, which had become the language of the church. He noticed that these 14 books were not in the original Hebrew text. So he insisted that they not be included in the Bible, the Vulgate. But Pope Damasus, who was sponsoring the translation, said, yes, they are to be included. So he included them. And they became a part of the Bible until the 16th century, when Martin Luther in 1525 made his translation into German, decided that since they're not part of Hebrew texts, they should not be in the Bible. So he put them in a separate section of the Bible. And John Calvin, the other Protestant reformer, decided also that they should not be scripture. So under the influence of these two Protestant reformers, Luther and Calvin, then later the British and Foreign Bible Society in 1829 decided not to include them in the Bibles that they printed.
And part of that reasoning was what?
Part of it was economic. That
it was just too expensive.
It was too expensive to send to print those extra Bibles, and they were sending these Bibles to the mission fields.
And so these 14 books, these hidden books, they've been certainly the subject of a lot of debate. They're in, they're out.
That's right.
What's in them? What is their basic message?
Oh boy, that's a wonderful question because, well, I can tell you there's all kinds of things. There is humor. Let me give you an example. First Esdras, that's the Latin for First Ezra. And you have a story of what's the strongest thing in the world. And this was common among the Greeks. They liked to, and Romans too, they like to ask the question, who's number one, or what's the strongest? So they invent this contest between three guards of the Persian king called Darius. This is all fiction. And they have a contest, what's the strongest? And they are to defend their answers. And the first one says, wine is the strongest thing. And his defense is, wine can destroy your essence, that is your rationality. It can destroy your social relations. Brothers fight against brothers. It can destroy families. And it even makes everybody equal. Kings and beggars can, when they're drunk, they talk as if they're millionaires. And it also destroys memory, because when you get drunk, you can't even remember what you did. So obviously wine is the strongest thing in the world. The next one said, no, the king is. And his explanation is, the king causes people to go to war. They fight, they risk their lives, they bring back their whatever they have captured, and they give it to the king. And then the king also demands taxes of the people, and all of this. So he must be the strongest.
I can see that.
The third says, no, woman is strongest. And so his answer is simply that woman gives birth to kings, and women, people go everywhere and try to get all kinds of gifts, and they bring it and they bestow it on their beloved. And when they're carrying their most precious possessions in their hand, and they see a beautiful woman, they drop it and stare open mouth at.
So one guy says women, another guy says the king, and another guy says wine.
Wine.
Is there an answer?
But that third one says, but women and kings and wine are all material. They are finite. But greatest of all is truth. And then, so he has two answers. And then he says, and blessed be the God of truth. So you have humor and you have a moral. And that's typical of these stories. You have a lot of stories like that. You have detective stories. For example, one called Tobit, and in it you have an angel who helps him to find his beloved, and you have all kinds of magic in it. His beloved has been married 6 times, and a demon who wants to possess her kills all of the 6 husbands on the night of the marriage. And so the angel helps him by telling him, the fish you have caught and the entrails of it you must burn in the bedroom, and then the demon will be driven away. So the demon is driven to Egypt. And so you have this, he then takes his wife. So you have angels who are providentially taking care of someone who is really devout. You have other stories, for example,
well, you said that they said there was a time it was said these are to be for the use of biblical scholars, essentially.
Right.
Are the things you're seeing in these hidden books, are they of a higher level of scholarship in some way, or not? They sound like some of the other stories. I mean, basically that's how you speak, is in parables and stories and that kind of thing. Do they really seem any different or any at a higher level?
Some of them are. For example, Second Esdras, it is very similar to the book of Job. It's about the suffering of humankind. And the prophets in the Bible had so often condemned Israel for their sins, and it had become a self-fulfilling prophecy. The people thought that they were not good enough, and the reason for calling them sinners was you have to justify God. And how would God allow the Babylonians or the Persians or the Assyrians to defeat the Israelites? Is God weak? And their answer is no. But instead, God, you have sinned so much that God is punishing you through them. So as a consequence of that, the people began to think, we're all going to die. And when we die, we're going to be damned. So Second Esdras says, why it would have been better if you had not created us, because we're all going to suffer in hell. And the angel answers and said, no, you don't have to worry. You're a good person. But he said, look, all the other people are going to suffer damnation. So it would be better not to have been born. So you have that kind of very sensitive concern over the fate of humankind. And so
very heavy.
It's very heavy.
All right, we have to take a break, and then I want to come back and try and get at what that is communicating to us today. How is that, if at all, relevant today? And you've written a book about Ecclesiastes. I want to talk about Ecclesiastes as well. So we'll take a break. Be back right after this.